Ladies and gentlemen, join us tonight as we attempt to commune with the devil. Right after this. Hey, it's not the time! That's not it! Turn it off! Turn it off! What is going on, everyone, and welcome to my review of Late Night with the Devil. Now, I'm going to be quite upfront. This has been my most anticipated film of the year. It just ticks the boxes for me. It looks super cool. It's an Aussie film, which normally I don't, get overly patriotic, but after Talk to Me and seeing what the Aussies did in the horror genre with that film, I was morbidly curious as to see how well they executed it here. And it was filmed about an hour from my house, so that was cool. Doesn't happen a lot. So this film was directed by brothers Cameron Cairns and Colin Cairns, and it stars David Dastmalchian, Laura Gordon, Ian Bliss, Faisal Bazzi, Ingrid Torelli, Rhys Orteri, and plenty of other people that appear, including Michael Ironside in the role of a narrator. And to avoid giving anything away, because I think it's best to go into this film as blind as you can, I'll just give you a very general synopsis. So there's a man, a late night TV talk show host named Jack Delroy, who is played by David Dastmalchian, and his show is on a bit of a steady decline, competing with Johnny Carson, and in order to bump up the ratings, he decides to hold an extra spooky Halloween special, which goes horribly wrong. I really love the way that this film opens. It's got like Michael Ironside being a narrator of as though it's like a documentary. The film is set up kind of as a found footage horror film, but not in the way where it's just uses a bunch of shaky cam to cover up, shoddy effects and tension and stuff like that. And it's a different type of found footage, one that I haven't really seen before. So it's presented as this opening documentary. You get all the background information and you learn a bunch of things, which I won't go into. And then once that opening narration is done, the rest of the film is like the salvaged footage from that episode. Alongside, during the commercial breaks, it actually cuts to black and white footage where you get to see behind the scenes of the TV show. So it's kind of like a mix of found footage and a normal film in a way, but it's presented as though you are watching a documentary of an account of what happened on that night in 1977. And that makes it super effective. It really does feel like you are watching something that has happened decades ago and has been gone unexplained. You've got no idea what's happening or how it happened, and it really does look like a late night talk show setting. Just the costumes, like David Dastmalchian's wearing this ugly vanilla suit, which is just so out of the 70s by the looks of it. The sets with the owls on the door and stuff like that, and the chairs and the popping vibrant colours of everything, and the little stage band over to the left. It's just spot on, and it really, really feels like you are watching something that you shouldn't be. The dialogue is top notch. Not only does it have jokes that actually do land and are pretty funny, it is also littered with jokes that do not land and are just dreadful, which is just perfect because it really does make it feel even more authentic, because some of the humor then and some of the way they set up things like audience interactions and the audience members trying to deliver punchlines, and it's just cringe inducing. It makes it feel real. It really feels so real. It doesn't feel polished or anything like that. Just the dialogue and the way it's written is so cool and so cringeworthy at the same time, but it couldn't be any better. I think all of the performances here are spectacular. David Dastmalchian in particular, my God, he is going to be one of those people where you're eventually going to see a film that he's in, that he's going to star in, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'm checking that out just because of him. He's been in so many films. He's been in movies like The Dark Knight and Prisoners as kind of like, weird side characters. And especially last year, he really started to punch in a little bit more. He played a role in The Boogeyman, which was definitely the most effective part of that movie. He was one of the lead actors in Last Voyage of the Demeter, where he was also great. And in Oppenheimer as well. I just recently rewatched Oppenheimer, and for the small role that he has, he's really, really solid in that film. So it's just exciting to see him punch through into a really good leading role where he has this charisma about him, where he's got the kind of, oily, slicked black hair, the nasty long sideburns. He talks directly into the camera and gets super serious at times and claps his hands together like this, and then, will say something as a joke to someone off to the side at the band, or look over to one of the other cameras when they're cutting away to an ad break or something like that. He nails it. And not only that, he nails the way that it's kind of like an on and off switch in him for when he goes backstage and he just kind of becomes his normal self again compared to when he's on stage with the showmanship. He's almost playing two different characters in a way, where he's got to really, seem like the one that's in control and officiating everything, and then he gets to go back and he's like panicking and thinking, what the fuck? Or, he's getting really, really excited, changing plans and stuff like that about the show, like halfway through without any consideration of what could happen. He's really great as this desperate late night talk show host who behind the scenes is basically just holding on for dear life onto the success of this episode, being able to bump his show up while also being charismatic and charming and in control of everything. I think Ingrid Torelli was also really good in this film. She plays a character who I won't go into her backstory. You do get a bit of it in the trailer, but the trailer footage I'm going to show you, I'm not going to show you very much of it because I do think the trailer gives away too much. But she plays a character, and she's really, really good. She's really creepy. She was actually in The Force of Nature recently, earlier this year, which is another Aussie film. So she was barely in that film. She was just like a very small side character, but she was one of the main standouts in this film, and very creepy, very intense, very intimidating, and I thought she was really great. Everyone else was super great too. You've got the skeptic as well, who's, just trying to go out to debunk everything, and he's sitting there with his cigar. He's very confident in himself, and he's really funny. I think Laura Gordon is really great as this kind of parapsychologist, I think is what she's called, and she really has to balance this. She kind of has to balance one hand, obviously being she's on live TV in front of a massive audience, while also being in fear, which I don't want to get too much into it, but she's got to act as though she's in control when she's really, really not, and she's great. I really, really love this take on demonic possession. This is something I've never seen before. There is a film, I believe it was in the 90s with Michael Parkinson, believe it or not, called Ghost Watch, which I'm pretty sure is something kind of like you can compare the two. I haven't seen it, but the thing is that this film is something that I haven't seen before. And I think for all the films, like all the exorcism films and the demonic films that are just so wash, rinse and repeat, like, a lot of the Conjuring sequels, like, Curse of La Llorona and The First Nun and stuff like, The Last Exorcism or The Exorcist Believer. It's so fucking wash, rinse and repeat. And to see a film that tackles demons and the devil as well as this is something like really unique. And that lends itself to being really unpredictable as well. I had no idea where this was going, and I was just locked in, and I loved it. You had films like, obviously, Talk to Me last year was a pretty interesting take on the kind of like possession subgenre, but even then it was kind of comparable to Insidious in a way. And When Evil Lurks was another one that was pretty unique last year, but still, it kind of just took the template of a zombie apocalypse movie where demon is like, you know, the infestation, like, you know, the rage virus from 28 Days Later or something like that. Late Night with the Devil is really something that I haven't seen before, and it is fucking great. Now, a lot of films that are horror comedies, let's face it, they are basically just gory comedies. I don't remember the last time I've watched a film where it's actually funny and creepy. Because a lot of the times, like, you know, yeah, they might be kind of a little bit creepy, but most of the time, they're just funny with a lot of gore or, you know, shock value scenes that don't really, you know, cut deep. Late Night with the Devil had me giggling and laughing at the kind of cheesiness of the 1970s and the way certain lines were delivered and the way jokes really didn't land sometimes, or when they did land. But it also had me really tense. And I mean, like, I've not been this creeped out in a theater in a long time. I actually can't remember the last time I was this creeped out in a theater. This was really, really creepy stuff. It perfectly balances laughs with scares. I was just not sure where this was going to go because it's like a new take. It's something that I couldn't compare it to. It's not something like, oh yeah, I think it's going to go down this path or this path. It's just like, I was just trapped in there. I was just like, oh my God. And the way it's got that 70s aesthetic, it really does feel like a salvaged episode or something. It really feels like you are watching something that you shouldn't be. And that lends itself to more comparisons too, and things that are similar to it. Like, this film takes place in 1977, and The Exorcist took place in 1974. It was released in 73. But the point is when The Exorcist came out, there was a lot of kind of buzz and controversy around it, as though you really shouldn't watch it, or like, you know, you'll be haunted if you do watch this. I have never watched a film where I'm like, I actually don't think I should be watching this. Late Night with the Devil was that, and it really taps into that kind of 70s paranoia with watching films like The Exorcist or The Omen, or even listening to bands like AC/DC or Led Zeppelin, when you think, oh, if you play it backwards or if you listen to it too much, you're going to conjure the devil. It gives that kind of feeling. And it's not just limited to the 1970s either. It can be used for things that have happened more recently, like, I'm not going to get into it too much, but when I was watching this film, I really started to think about Logan Paul and the Japanese Forest video. And what people will do for views, and what you should and shouldn't watch, and what will make you feel icky, and just the overall price for fame. This film can be applied to so many different things, and it is just great. It hasn't left my head. This film has a really slow building of tension too. I know some people have said that they think the pacing is a bit off. I completely disagree. I think that just the first half of the film basically consists of barely any horror, but there is always something underneath the surface. It's the old Alfred Hitchcock saying, if the audience doesn't know that there's a bomb under the table while two people are having a conversation and it goes off, that is a shock. If you know that there is a bomb there and they're still talking, that is tension. And that's exactly what this film is. There is one part where a character keeps coughing. He keeps needing to clear his throat. And my God, I was just waiting. It probably was like 15 minutes of screen time where that character was just trying to clear their throat in the background of scenes. And I was just like, oh God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then when something did happen and come as a result of that, it was just like popped out of the screen, just like, holy shit. And this film has several moments of insanity and just creepiness and explosions of just craziness that I love. I can't tell you how much this movie was right up my alley. And lastly, the way this film wraps up, the last 15 minutes, that is one motherfucker of an ending. We just talked about Immaculate the other day, which has a fantastic ending too. The way that this film goes, it just explodes out of nowhere, and you are just gripped by it. And it's one of those ones too, which I really appreciate, that you won't get immediately. You'll have to sit there and think about it for a while. And I went to a showing about an hour and a half from my house where it was playing the nearest. at 9 p.m. So this film finished at a bit after 11. And I was driving home, and driving home in the middle of the night along the highway. The fog started to really come over the cars. There was no one else on the road. The high beams stopped doing really that much for the fog. And I started just playing over bits of this movie in my head and figuring out the ending and trying to figure out exactly what was happening through everything and thinking over other creepy parts of the film. And I got chills down my spine. Whether this film is perfect or not is debatable. But this film did something that a film hasn't done for me in a long time. It scared the fuck out of me. While also simultaneously making me laugh. While also simultaneously making me think about things, about what the movie has to say, about what people will do for fame, and what is ethical to put on camera and use as attention or clout, and what's not. And I just adored this film. I'm so happy to see more films coming out of Australia. I'm so happy that someone like David Dastmalchian was happy to come down and obviously read the script and was like, hell yeah, this is fucking sick, let's do it. And I'm happy to see that this film is getting the success and recognition that it deserves. Late Night with the Devil, in my opinion, it is top notch. Guys, thank you so much for watching my review of Late Night with the Devil. If you've seen this film, let me know what you think of it. If you haven't, absolutely check it out. And I will see you all later. Bye.